He's known the world over as America's mayor, the man who led New York through the dark days after 9/11. Now Rudy Giuliani is hoping his image as the tough-talking, crime-busting mayor of the Big Apple will propel him into the White House. And so far it seems to be working, with Giuliani leading the race to secure the Republican nomination. Yet critics say many of Giuliani's achievements are little more than myth, while one group of 9/11 firefighters blame him directly for failures that led to the deaths of hundreds of their colleagues at the World Trade Center. Our Washington correspondent Sarah Smith investigates.
Look at my results. What I actually did. Turning a city that was hopeless into a city that was considered the best example of urban turnaround the country.
His great skill is the skill of exaggeration and self-promotion.
He will say anything or do anything to get elected president of the United States.
The story of New York City, of falling crime and the rapid recovery from 9/11 has become Rudy Giuliani's story. But it's a tale that New Yorkers argue simply isn't true.
It's been 100 years since an American city mayor became the president, but Rudy Giuliani insists it is his experience here in New York that qualifies him to run the whole country. But as his record here comes under more scrutiny, he may find that it's going to turn out to be more of an embarrassment than a selling point.
I'm running for president of the United States. Did you know that?
He calls himself America's mayor, and it works because voters everywhere feel a personal connection to the man that they think stood up for them, for the whole country on 9/11.
Rudy Giuliani has a record with the American people that is based on an emotional bond. He can walk into any bar in America. Everyone will recognize him. They'll give him a standing ovation. They'll want to buy him a beer. And that's not just in the Northeast or in the West or the Midwest. It's in the South, the most conservative part of the United States. That image, that emotional bond is his greatest strength.
Smile, Taylor. But he wants to be a tough guy, too. The one whose tough policies and zero-tolerance policing slashed crime rates in New York.
Thank you so much. Our success in turning New York from the crime capital of America, which it was for 3 decades, to the safest large city in America is well known.
There's probably no greater myth in New York than the idea that Rudy Giuliani by himself cleaned up crime in the city.
In fact, crime started falling in New York long before Giuliani took over. Rising economic prosperity meant that crime rates fell in almost every American city.
Hi, how are you?
It was Giuliani's predecessor who put 6,000 extra police officers on the streets. Now he has to watch Rudy claiming the credit.
Rudy would have you believe that he personally walked the streets and reduced crime. I don't claim that I did that, but I say the policies that I instituted resulted in the decrease of crime.
And Giuliani's big mistake, appointing a police commissioner who's now been indicted for mafia-related crimes, makes his record look a lot shakier.
All that we know right now is that 2 airplanes struck the 2 large towers.
A horrendous number of lives lost. I don't think we know yet.
Giuliani's presidential campaign revolves around 9/11. He claims that other candidates underestimate the terror threat, that only he will keep America safe. But despite many warnings, he did almost nothing to prepare New York for an attack. And he admits on September 11th, he didn't even know who Al-Qaeda were.
Losing some of my close friends on September 11th and having to get my city through that, I learned something I will never forget. And if you elect me president, I will carry it with me every single day I'm president of the United States.
At Ground Zero today, they're still digging the foundations for the new Freedom Tower. Before 9/11, the one thing Giuliani had done was to build himself, right next to this site, an emergency command centre.
Giuliani spent $60 million putting his command bunker into World Trade Center Tower number 7. He installed a humidor for his cigars, put monogram towels in the bathroom. He even had a private elevator, which was pretty handy when he brought his then mistress, now third wife, here at the weekends. But he also put in a 6,000-gallon emergency fuel tank, and that meant that when burning debris from the Twin Towers hit the building, it went up like a blowtorch.
So we were trapped in the building for 10, 15 minutes and finally found an exit and got out, walked north, and took a lot of people with us.
Get to evacuate people from the World Trade Center.
Giuliani found himself wandering the streets because he had ignored advice to put his command centre safely underground in Brooklyn, insisting instead it had to be near City Hall.
So consequently, we wind up with a command center that was evacuated right after the planes hit. So from then on, it's chaos. From then on, it's chaotic scenes of Rudi walking through the streets. Those are the pictures that are now making him a presidential candidate, but if he'd been functioning that day, he wouldn't have been walking through the streets, and we might have been better protected.
The World Trade Center was an obvious terror target. It was also bombed in 1993. Then, firefighters found that their radios did not work inside the towers. By 2001, Giuliani had not fixed this problem. So as the towers were collapsing, 121 firemen inside never heard the order to evacuate.
Giuliani insisted that the order had gone out to the firefighters to evacuate the towers, and that they simply refused to go, intent as they were on rescuing people in the towers. This is an outright lie. Emergency service people who had working communication systems were running down these stairs of the towers, apparently telling them, get out, the towers are coming down. They didn't go because they didn't have the orders. There was no way to get them the orders.
James Riches was one of those firefighters. He died inside the North Tower. His father, also a fireman, holds Rudi Giuliani responsible for his son's death.
He's politicized 9/11 from the very beginning. He's profited off 9/11, and he's let all the lies go that he is the hero of 9/11.
There was an attack of some kind on the Pentagon.
And what did he do that day? He ran before any of the towers had fallen. He was running north, and he kept running while I was down there digging on my hands and knees looking for my son's body.
Like thousands of others who worked on the site, Jimmy Riches wasn't given a respirator. Giuliani insisted the air was safe. But now he is seriously ill, falling into a coma last year as his lungs collapsed.
And that's going to be the legacy of the Giuliani administration. His sick and dying first responders, probably more than what died that day on 9/11.
Firefighters promise that if Giuliani wins the Republican nomination, they will follow his campaign around the country telling their story.
I'm Rudi Giuliani, and I approve this message. New York
With
City
his
is
presidential bid so focused on 9/11, they could do him serious damage.
So I believe I've been tested in a way in which the American people can look to me. They're not going to find perfection, but they're going to find somebody who's dealt with crisis almost on a regular basis and has had results. And in many cases, exceptional results, results people thought weren't possible.
New York is centre stage in this presidential election. The frontrunners in both parties are based here, so it's New Yorkers that know them the best. That may not turn out to be to Giuliani's advantage. Sarah Smith, Channel 4 News, New York.
Our main story tonight. Police searching a house in Kent where the bodies of two teenage girls have been found have finished their work in the garden and will now concentrate on the inside of the building. We're back tomorrow at 7:30. Until then, from Katie and from me, that's Channel 4 News. Good evening.